We want both of us here. There we go. Welcome to Vintage SF Live. I'm here today with the Dean of Canadian Science Fiction, winner of Hugo, Nebula, John W. Campbell Awards, other awards, Canadian Science Fiction Awards, the Auroras, and many from other countries. I'm here with Robert J. Sawyer. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, Richard, delighted to be here.
Thank you. It's good to have you here. And I saw you just recently at McNally Robinson here in Winnipeg as you were here for the book launch of the Downloaded 2, Ghost in the Machine. And the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was this bookmark here. I noticed something on the back of the bookmark right at the bottom here. I have a picture I'm just going to pull up. Let me just see here if I can do this. And so I looked this up. There's a book, a whopping 672 pages coming, according to this, August 4th. Can you tell us a little bit about this book?
Yes. First, I'll say about the bookmarks. My friend, who is the book designer for the covers for Downloaded and Downloaded 2, surprised me by making those bookmarks as she sent a little gift. Have good luck on your book tour. I've made you bookmarks. And she outed the fact that, yes, Sawyer on science fiction, 670 pages, 225,000 words of the nonfiction that I've written about science fiction, going right back. Some of the pieces date back to the 1980s, right through to the most recent piece was written in April of this year. I've given a lot of thought and rumination to this genre that I've devoted my life to, and written critical pieces and how to write columns, plus introductions for a great many of my colleagues, David Gerald, Lois McMaster-Bujold, David Brin, and many others. And I just thought, why not put them all together into one big volume? Originally, I said to the publisher, same publisher who did Downloaded and Downloaded 2, I think this will be a small, I don't mean small in terms of size, a massive thing, you could kill a man with that, but small in terms of audience interest. And the publishing company is based in Saskatchewan, Shadow Paw Press, distributed, though, by the Literary Press Group of Canada, which is a consortium that distributes literary presses across the country. And they seized on it. They said, no, this is a big commercial book, and they're pushing it very hard. To my great obvious delight, but surprise, I thought we'd sell a couple hundred copies to Canadian libraries with, Dean of Canadian Science Fiction, I guess we got to have it. When the pre-orders, we haven't even announced it online, just people finding it online, are already gigantic. So I'm delighted. And yes, August 4th, we just moved up the pub date because the printer said, and the distributors said they could accommodate that. We were originally going for a month later. So it's going to launch in Calgary at When Words Collide, the multi-genre fiction convention there. The next week, I'm going to a meeting of the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Society, the oldest science fiction club in the world. Larry Niven comes out to the meetings every week to sort of launch it at their meeting. And the following week, the official launch at the World Science Fiction Convention in Los Angeles. Sawyer on science fiction. And I'll tell you something else. I don't want to monopolize this.
Yeah, but no, I want to hear about it.
You read Downloaded 2.
Yeah.
So in Downloaded 2, the password to get access to the quantum computer where everybody's consciousness is uploaded to is Cassandra Screaming. That was my title for the book, the working title for this manuscript, because Cassandra, of course, is the female prophet in Greek mythology who was cursed doubly to always be able to foretell the future, but never be believed. And I thought, that's science fiction to a T right now, with artificial intelligence, with climate degradation, you name rise of authoritarianism, you name the crisis we are facing today. And my colleagues and I, and the giants whose shoulders the contemporary writers stand on, been writing about that for 70 or 80 years. And it was the distributor who said, no, it's your name that's going to sell it. And who the heck knows who Cassandra is? And I said, well, and then they said, no, if anything, they'll think of Cassandra Peterson, who was Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. And I thought, well, that could sell books too, right?
If she was on the cover.
If she was on I got to meet her once. I was in the green room at Fan Expo Toronto, which is like Fan Expo everywhere else. It's just the local franchise of it. And she and Barbara Eden were in of course, they're both absolutely lovely, even at the age they are now, and both absolutely charming. Barbara Eden from I Dream of Jeannie, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to pre-order it too. I was going to, I want to check and see if McNally is bringing you in, but I think I got to get my
McNally absolutely will bring it in. I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
We've just put up the metadata. It's only just propagating to being able to be ordered, but it'll be available from bookstores everywhere. It's in no way, shape, or form a POD book or an Amazon exclusive.
And I see we have some people with us already here, and welcome people who are with us. I see someone has already said that they're going to pre-order. They're ready for it, and they're really geeked out on it. So they're excited about it. That's awesome. I won't be able to get to the comments very much here, but do ask some questions if you have them. We will get to them a little bit later. But I got a few of my own questions for Rob here. Knowing that you're going to be, by the way, nonfiction about science fiction is actually my favorite niche about science fiction. I love history.
Isn't it though, right? I just love it.
Literary criticism. Like
that's right. That's right. Going back to, Damon Knight writing literary criticism, James Blish, who's probably best known for doing the Star Trek episode novelizations. Yeah. I'm sure you grab him off the shelf there, but a Hugo Award winner, fine writer. But of course, there you are. But of course, wrote as the critic under a pen name, so people wouldn't beat him up. The issue at hand and more issues at hand. Damon Knight with the Futurians, Isaac Asimov's nonfiction, Asimov, and the longer versions. Brian Aldiss. I love books about science fiction. And what I love is the authors, if they are science fiction, right? You've got the Trillion Year Spree version. The original version was Billion with a B. All Billion Year Spree. There you are. You got them all, right?
I've told you, I'm a
fascinating because despite the fact that science fiction has been dumped on by people from outside since its inception, you read the history and you see very clearly that its practitioners were very clear that they were trying one after another to better each other at what they were doing, to develop a whole new paradigm of storytelling that had real fictive and literary virtues. And yeah, I love that subcategory of books for sure.
And I've been part of my reading this year, I've been starting to read more and more of the Canadian science fiction. One of the things, I was a constant reader of yours in the 1990s.
Oh, thank you.
And I started coming back to some of those books. I do vintage SF, and I talk about usually books 2000 and older. But I've been coming back to some of your books, some of the dinosaur books, and of course read these as well. But I also was getting into a couple other Canadian science fiction writers. Robert Charles Wilson, who I believe is a good friend of yours.
One of my very best friends, my brother from another mother. Bob is absolutely spectacular. Of course, he won his Hugo for Spin. That's the last time I ever had a drink. We were in Los Angeles last time the World Con was in Los Angeles. He won the Hugo, and Bob, I'm somewhat outgoing and extroverted, and Bob is much shyer. And there's he just won the Hugo, but he didn't want to go to any of the parties at the World Con. He said, what I really want to do is just go out with you and his wife, Sherry, my wife, Carolyn. Let's just go have a drink. And I had a gin and tonic. I've never been much of a drinker. And if Bob or I ever win another Hugo, then it's time to crack open a bottle of something. But otherwise, that was my last time I felt celebratory enough. Wonderful writer. Spin, Mysterium, Blind Lake, The Chronoliths, Axis, which was a sequel
to
Darwinia, which has one of the most beautiful covers you've ever seen.
I agree.
And B is just a spectacularly clever book. The one that if you've never read him, I'm going to say right now, the one to read that's apropos of what's going on now with Donald Trump and all of his self-aggrandizement and trying to secure his future legacy is The Chronoliths, CHRONO, chrono time, LITHS, liths, stone, time stones. The Chronoliths is very apropos of what's happening right now, even though it's I'm going to say 20-year-old book. I'm sure Bob would correct me in an instant with the right date. Great.
Yeah.
All of his books are great.
That's actually the next one of his that I want to read. But I want to give you a book here just to see if you can recognize. You are a big supporter of Canadian science fiction, and you really pushed hard for the SFWA, the Science Fiction Writers. Well, it used to be of America, but is association now of having a Canadian
Partly because
chapter.
of me. It was 20 years of me and Arthur C. Clarke and Charles Sheffield and a few others pushing, who were writers outside the United States, saying, what's this parochial name you have? You talk about the universe and you've got a name that's named for a country, not only just named for a country, but Damon Knight, the founder of SFWA, or SEFWA, as we old timers call it, said the most unrealistic thing about science fiction is the prevalence of Americans as characters in the story. As he said, quite rightly, practically no one is an American. 300 million Americans out of 8 billion people. Anyways, okay, you're going to try and stump me.
I was going to see, are you familiar with this book?
The Man Who Awoke by Lawrence Manning. I know of the book. I have not read the book. Did you like it?
I loved it. It was fix-ups of stories from the 1930s. Lawrence Manning was born, I believe it was in New Brunswick, lived in Canada till he was about 21, 22, then moved to New York and did writing. I think he did some engineering or something like that as well. But I like discovering obscure people, but also a guy from Winnipeg, probably our most famous science fiction writer.
You don't even have
not
to
all
hold it
people
up.
know
A.E.
is
Van Vogt.
Yeah.
So I will tell you the most poignant story of my life. The best day of my life to that point was in 1996. I was on the Queen Mary, docked off Long Beach, California. It was the gala black tie Nebula Award banquet. And I won the Nebula Award for Best Novel of the Year for The Terminal Experiment. But the biggest award of the night is not the best novel. It is the Grand Master Award that SFWA also gives. And that night, A.E. Van Vogt was getting the Grand Master. Now, because of ridiculous SIFWA politics, Damon Knight hated Van Vogt. He thought he was a crappy writer. And even though Van Vogt was way more famous than Knight ever was as a writer, Knight was a great critic and editor, but not particularly famous as a writer. We held off, the organization had held it off giving the award to Van Vogt. Okay. So I go up to see Van Vogt at his table after he's won the award. And here I am, this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to me. It's launched my career into the stratosphere overnight. And I say to him, I just want to say to you, I'm a Canadian. I'm from Toronto. And the fact that you, a Canadian, was selling to the American magazines, Astounding Stories, and the American book publishers was my inspiration. It told me that somebody living in Canada could still be part of this Of America group. And he looked at me. He's a very tall man. I'm 5'10", and he looked down on me. He looked down at me and he said, I remember having been a science fiction writer, but I can't remember a single word that I wrote. We had delayed it so long in SFWA that he was already in the grip of Alzheimer's by the time we finally gave it to him. It's a tragedy of SEFWA politics, because he should have been one of the first 10 Grand Masters when we started giving them in the early 60s, in the mid 60s. Sorry, not the early 60s.
I know when they talk about the big three, Clarke, Asimov, and Heinlein, he's definitely not far behind if you were going to a big four.
Absolutely. And incredibly inventive. And I'll say to everybody out there, I've never heard of Van Vogt. I don't know any of his stories. If you've seen the movie Alien, he won a lawsuit because they ripped off Alien from
Destroyer,
part of the Voyage of the Space Beagle.
Yeah.
The Quirrell, his prowling alien.
Yeah.
On and on.
In fact, that's the one on the cover here.
There it is. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So, I'm just going to do a couple of comments before I ask you some of my questions again. There was a question here that I saw. Constance, welcome here. I'll just put your question up here. Which of your books would you recommend to somebody new to your work? That's a tough question. I've asked some other authors this question, but go for it.
Well, so the answer is the Downloaded. And there's a real reason for that. There's one reason is, as one should always say, something you can actually go and get in the bookstore as opposed to something that's out of print. But the real reason is this, and we'll get into this later when we talk about the Downloaded. But I knew, because the Downloaded started it was commissioned originally by Audible and was going to be narrated by Brendan Fraser, that a lot of people who had never read science fiction were going to read or listen to the Downloaded. And I thought, I want to do a book that introduces the science fiction genre, as well as all the themes that are elsewhere in my book. So a lot of my science fiction is also murder mystery, as is the Downloaded. A lot of my science fiction deals with uploaded consciousness, as does the Downloaded. A lot of my science fiction deals with civil and moral rights and philosophical questions, as does the Downloaded. So, and it's a very short book. It's only about, I think, 68,000 words. And so it's an easy introduction. And even though, and now here I am doing the contrary to business thing, I wrote it as a standalone. I never intended a sequel. A sequel exists. If you want to get the sequel, great, but you will find a perfect introduction to Robert J. Sawyer in the Downloaded. That said, you can also get my favorite novel, though, of all my 26, the Oppenheimer alternative, but it's not particularly typical, but it is my favorite. And thank you for asking, Constance.
And you know what? You just got a brand new cover for the Oppenheimer alternative, which is beautiful, with an exploding atom bomb behind these characters. You seem to be putting out some of your books. I'm not sure, is it self-publishing, or how do you?
No. That new edition is with Shadowpaw Press.
Okay.
And it was the buyer for Chapters, or Indigo, believe it or not. I'd gotten the rights back. I'd published it separately with an American publisher and a Canadian publisher. I got the rights back from both of them. And I said to Ed Willett, who's the publisher of Shadowpaw, and also a very fine science fiction writer in his own right for DAW Books. I said to Ed, would you like to pick up Backlist? Would you like to pick up Oppenheimer? And he said, sure. And a literary distribution group went to Indigo, and they said, well, you're offering it with the same cover you had before. If you get a new cover for it, I'll buy big, said the buyer for Indigo. And then, to my astonishment, the buyer for Indigo, went looking online for all the foreign edition covers of the book, because it's in many languages. And he said, you know what? This one, which was originally the Hungarian edition of Oppenheimer Alternative, I love this one. So I contacted my Hungarian publisher and said, quite literally, you guys owe me money. You know, you owe me some money. I want you to, I'll forgive some of that debt if you give me the rights to use this art. And we got the art from the Hungarian publisher, and the typography with the O in Oppenheimer's a starburst, exactly the same. But my usual designer, Bibliophile Designs in Red Deer, Alberta, copied the typography. But yeah, it's a beautiful cover.
I haven't read this one yet, so this will be my next Sawyer book. That's great. Looking forward to it. And you are pretty much an expert on Oppenheimer with all the research you have done.
Yes, absolutely. I did not know that Christopher Nolan was going to be doing a film about Oppenheimer when I wrote the book, which is, he happened to do it. But mine is an alternate history novel. In theory, it is. But his take on Oppenheimer is more alternate history than mine. There are scenes made up of whole cloth in his story, that his film, that just did not happen. And his version of Oppenheimer is constantly brooding, is just not, and Cillian Murphy, who portrayed it, is just not J. Robert Oppenheimer, who was so charming that women fell for him left, right, and center. Charming and erudite, and could be funny. Yes, of course, at moments of tragedy. Absolutely, he shows that tragic inner life, but that is not who he was on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Well, Constance says thanks, and it sounds really juicy.
Thank you, Constance.
I'll go to a couple other comments that we have here. Calculating God is one of the best books out there, a masterpiece on its own. I was able to get Robert to sign mine when he was down here. I had found an original first edition. I was really pleased with that. I collect as well. You know, if I can get a fifth edition, I will.
It was a beautiful copy in perfect condition at the McNally Robinson event. I remember signing it.
Yeah. Starplex was the first, and this might be the first one I read before I went to your dinosaur books. Was the first one these read, and Calculating God. Yeah.
Starplex has legs. That
Mhm.
thing is now 30 years old this year. And it's my hardest hard SF novel, my most far future spaceships and aliens. It's my Star Trek done right novel. And it just has astonishing sales legs. I'm just delighted at how
That's awesome.
strong that book is. The only book of its year to be nominated for both the Hugo and the Nebula, and won Canada's top SF award, the Aurora.
Yeah. The last part of this comment I just saw was, I read it while my grandfather was battling lung cancer, and it helped muchly. So there you go.
That would be Calculating God she's referring to. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I've heard that from a lot of people. Ironically and sadly, because the main character, a paleontologist in the story, is battling lung cancer, which he got from inhaling mineral dust doing fossil preparations. After the book came out in 2000. In 2009, my own younger brother, died of lung cancer.
Oh.
So I had to live through a lot of what I'd written about previously. But yeah. I've heard from a lot of people that it helped them deal with their own cancer or a family member's cancer.
That's got to be gratifying.
It is. But also on the plus side, and not that that's a negative that I've helped them, I've heard from a lot of people that they went into paleontology as a career because of Calculating God, and that's very gratifying. The book, The Complete Dinosaur, a standard text, edited by Michael Brett Sermon, the dinosaur expert at the Smithsonian, and a couple of other people, has its dedication is to about 8 different paleontologists. And the last one in the list is my fictional paleontologist, Tom Hollis. So just touched me right
awesome.
here. Yeah, it is.
And DB34 says, just saw this was live. Just wanted to pop in and say hi. Read pretty much everything you have. Actually have a copy of Golden Fleece right now that they want to read. Many thanks for your work.
My pleasure. Thank you, DB34, if that is your real name.
All right. I'm going to go out of the comments for now and get back to some of the things we were talking about. I think maybe we should, I want to talk about these books, but I want to come at it from the angle of how did Audible come to you first?
Yep.
Talk about how Audible came to you and what it was like to write a radio script, in effect, versus, I know that you've done some script work for television, but this would be a little bit different, I would think.
Radiodrama.
Yeah.
CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Okay.
So just before COVID, Audible, which is based in New Jersey, I've been to their headquarters, lovely place. There is, audible.com, and for us in Canada, audible.ca, which is a fairly recent venture for them. And they thought they wanted to increase their Canadian offerings. So they approached a number of major Canadian writers in all disciplines, some nonfiction, my friend, various people, and asked us if we would write something original for them. And I said, yeah, if the money is right. And we went back and forth for quite a bit of time until finally the money was right. And I said, sure, but I'm a novelist. And you don't publish novels. I can license you an exclusive window where you can have the audiobook rights before it comes out in print and ebook, but I'm retaining the print and ebook rights. And they said yes, which was, I thought, a great deal for both of us. And it was a great deal for both of us. And everything was going fine. And then COVID hit. And Audible's safety coordinator contacted me and the producer that they'd assigned, who was Greg Sinclair from CBC Radio, formerly of the radio drama department, and said, you can't get more than one actor into the studio at a time during COVID, how are we going to do this? You can have actors. If you've ever listened to watched the animated Star Trek series from the 70s,
yes,
except for the first episode they recorded, all the episodes were recorded with Shatner and Nimoy in different locations because they were off. One was doing a stage play, the other's doing a TV show or filming a commercial, and they would take an hour out of one day to get their dialogue, and the tape would be mailed into Los Angeles. And you can tell they're not in the same room sparking off. It doesn't have
Right.
the electricity of the original series because of that. So we ended up deciding that we would do just first-person narrations. And I thought, well, this will be challenging for me. I wonder how many I can get away with. And in the first book, we ended up having 9 different first-person narrators, including the great Brendan Fraser, who was our lead character, Luke Kirby from Hamilton, Ontario, who won an Emmy Award for playing Lenny Bruce on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Vanessa Sears, who sung the national anthems, Canada and the U.S., at the Toronto Blue Jays opener this season, and is starring right now in the hit musical And Juliet, Ampersand Juliet, as Juliet. It's a sequel to Romeo and Juliet if Juliet had survived. The great, I mean, you can't go, Colm Feore, a legend of the Canadian stage, as Raywan the Martian, and Andrew Fung, multiple Canadian Screen Award winner, best known for his role, of course, in Kim's Convenience.
Oh,
as
that's all I saw when I saw him. It was Kim's Convenience.
They're just, you couldn't ask for a better cast. And Audible, just kept rolling out the money to bring in every name that Greg and I suggested.
So,
although they're casting
this was a Canadian venture, so that's why we have all these Canadian actors. Is that correct?
They're all Canadians, and that was Greg and my decision.
Okay.
I think Audible would have been happy to go anyway, but we said, you know what, Canadian director, Canadian writer, let's keep the cast all from the Great White North. And Audible was happy because they're, as we all know up here, we have spectacular talent.
Yeah. What a great way to promote it as well. Just
it was. I mean, the book, people talking about how do you get word of mouth for your book before it's out, advanced reader copies, blah, blah, blah. Having all these people who'd listened to it on Audible saying, oh, I listened to that. That's great. Which is not atypical for my career, because 6 of my novels, where's a 6th appendage, were serialized in analog science fiction. In fact, the English language top-selling science fiction magazine before appearing in print.
Yep.
And there's no doubt that got them huge audiences. It's not a coincidence that The Terminal Experiment, which won the Nebula Award, or Hominids, which won the Hugo Award, were both serialized in analog, or that Starplex, which was nominated for both, was serialized in analog, or Wake, which was a Hugo finalist, was serialized in analog. You can't beat that audience. And then when the books launch out of the gate, there already is a lot of word of the mouth on the street.
Exactly. And to the voters too, who are voting for these awards, they already have some knowledge about the story. So, and this was another way that this was kind of out of the gate. People knew about this book.
That's right.
And I
got to say, Audible was just terrific to work with.
Awesome. And so coming out of the gate, I did notice right away that I knew I could hear it in my head. I have not heard the Audible version, but I could hear voices in my head for each of these characters because it rotates from the character to character in viewpoint in the story itself. Now,
I was just going to say, my goal was that you could flip it open. It says at the beginning of each chapter what the character is, who the character is. But I wanted people to be able to flip it open and not be mistaken about who the character was just by the voice in the page.
Yeah. Well, let's see if this one says interview with Jürgen Haas.
Yes, who is the Luke Kirby character.
Yeah. Or Captain Letitia Garvey. Would that be
how you say it? Letitia, which is Vanessa Sears.
Right. So I read both of these books and I was thinking, this one, I think you probably, this is just my opinion, that you probably really stuck very, very close to your script. This one read a little bit more novel-like to me. I didn't know if there was a change.
There was no script for the downloaded. It was performed from my manuscript.
Okay.
They both are exactly as performed on audio.
Okay. And I felt there was a bit of a difference somehow in terms of
the difference is the 9 narrators versus the 4 in Ghosts in the Machine. That was Audible saying, you know what? We kind of broke the bank on the 9 actors. Can you restrain it? They said, can you do it with 3? And we actually had a back and forth, and I said, nope, I need 4. And they said, okay, you can have 4. And it worked just fine.
And I found this one, it's very interesting because it's like a puzzle piece that fits in the previous one in
Yes,
terms of how
in
it
whole,
works.
right? It's not a sequel that starts at the end of the first book. It goes back, and you can plug in the scenes exactly to fill out stuff that wasn't there. It
And
was a
so
really hard sequel to write, but I think it turned out well.
I think so too, because what it does is it deepens your understanding of the characters. And I don't want to say too much about this poster, but it's very accurate in showing 2 Brendan Frasers and showing 2 young girls with a person in between holding their
Yes,
hand.
yes,
It they did a good job. There's so many novels that have cover art that just doesn't represent the work. That
yes.
I think really
That's the
represented this work.
audible version, of course. But if you look at the cover of Ghosts in the
Yeah.
Machine there, if you look carefully, and they probably won't be able to see it on camera, but in the kind of the silhouettes, there's lots of interesting things there.
Yeah.
In Annabelle's silhouette, the little girl, you'll find an axolotl. And in Roscoe's silhouette, you'll find that he has the same prisoner number on his back as Jean Valjean from Les Miserables.
It's hard to see, yes, because you have
It
to
is,
really
but
get
it's
it in the
there,
right
right?
angle
The
of light.
artist is very careful to, if you go and look at it, especially after you've read the book, oh, that's there, and that's there, and that's there.
I hadn't noticed it. Thank you
Yeah.
for pointing that out. So,
And that's Alicia Soulet at Bibliothèque Designs.
so how's the second one being received in Audible as well?
Did really, really well for Audible. Lots of, yeah, absolutely. Now, Audible does not just, this was an Audible title, both of them, that if you have a premium Audible account, which used to be the standard one, they're included in your account. So there's no really marketing of how many credits were redeemed for it, because anybody can just add it to their library and listen to it without using one of their Audible credits. But both were big hits for them. They were very, very pleased.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've said to some people before is that I feel, and I think you've just sort of said this at the beginning as well, this is a bit of your greatest hits in terms of looking at some of the themes that you've looked at throughout your career, with perhaps the exception of dinosaurs, except there's a catastrophic event that's similar to dinosaurs.
Yes. And there is a scene in Ghosts in the Machine where somebody goes to the Geology Museum at the University of Waterloo to salvage fossils from the Earth that's going to be destroyed. And one of my, I won't be able to recite it properly, but what I thought was a rather poetic line, to take fossils to Mars, meaning taking fossils to a world that never had any fossils of its own.
Yeah, I remember that line too. That's a great line. And there's a lot of humor in here. There's some callbacks to different science fiction series or
Yes,
books
absolutely.
and things like that as well.
Beneath the Planet of the Apes figures prominently, for instance, in Downloaded 2, Ghosts in the Machine.
I always say that one of the most influential books in my liking science fiction was when I was in middle school. I came across a Planet of the Apes and I didn't see the movie. I just read the book, and it just blew me away.
Original novel.
Yeah, and the framing story that he had around it. And when I finally did see Planet of the Apes, I'm going, well, this is not quite right, but this is pretty good too.
It's an extremely liberal adaptation. I love them both. The Pierre Boulle novel, of course, La Planète des Singes, La Planet of Apes, is an absolutely spectacular novel. And really, the science in it is good science, but it is really almost a Jonathan Swift type satire. An excellent, excellent book.
Yeah. All right, let's get to a couple of more comments here. Let's see what we have. Okay. Someone was talking about alternate history, and that was, I believe, when you were talking about the Oppenheimer alternative, parallax universe without a parallel universe. I'm not sure if he's read your book or not.
Oh, the Neanderthal Parallax series is also alternate history, but with the two timelines ultimately ending up being connected. So the hinge point is somewhere in the past where sort of the spark of consciousness, sophisticated, forward-thinking inner lives appeared in Homo sapiens sapiens, us, but not in our closest ever relatives, the Neanderthals in this timeline.
Oh,
And the
okay.
flip side happened in the other timeline. And then in the present day, a portal opens because of a quantum physics experiment, quantum computing experiment, and a Neanderthal, modern day Neanderthal quantum physicist slips through and appears in the Sudbury Neutrino Observatory snow lab in the water, drowning in our universe, and is rescued. And intercourse, in all meanings of that word, begin between our world and the Neanderthal world. But they are both absolutely alternate history. All
So we're
three,
getting,
hominids, humans, and hybrids, and the
that's what I was
Oppenheimer
thinking.
alternative. The Oppenheimer alternative more conventionally, because there's no interaction between the other timeline and our timeline.
But is it actually the universe from Neanderthal parallax?
No, they're not
It
the
comes
same
from? No,
universe.
okay.
No, that's one of the joys of mostly writing standalone work. I
Yes.
thought, as much as I admired Isaac Asimov, I was lucky enough to meet him. One of my very first sales was to him, not to his magazine, but to an anthology he was editing, 100 Great Fantasy Short Stories, if anybody's interested, in 1984. I think it was a huge mistake for him to spend the later years of his life trying to take Foundation and the robot universe and meld them together. It was a clumsy intersection, and I would have much rather he just wrote something new and separate, like The Gods Themselves, which is probably his best novel. Hugo winner, won the Hugo in Toronto in 1973, but is a standalone, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
else that one's in the universe of.
I think one of my favorite is End of Eternity.
Yeah, that's a real, of course, huge time travel novel, and a very interesting novel.
Yeah. And I kind of sometimes wonder whether there's some pressure from editors or from the publishers to try to marry these together for more
For
sales
sure.
potentially.
For sure. The hardest thing in my career, I'm lucky I had a career. I'm lucky I had a career because most of my books are standalones. And the sad reality that most authors in any genre have to face is there are fans for their series, but not fans for them. So that even the great Robert B. Parker, one of the great modern, he's passed away now, mystery fiction writers whose most famous series was, Spencer,
Yeah.
tried with, I think it was Jessica Stone and other series, and also tried writing books in Philip Marlowe's universe. They did okay, but the fans that weren't Parker fans, they were Spencer fans. And it's very hard for an author to come to terms with that. I mean, George R. R. Martin is gigantic with Game of Thrones, but how many people have read Game of Thrones have also read what I think is superior work like Sand Kings?
Mm. Yeah, and he's definitely written some science fiction books.
Oh yeah, I think he was.
Yeah.
Well, it's my own prejudice. I enjoy science fiction more.
Yeah, I do too. That's a preference, is what I say. I don't have anything against fantasy books and what they do as well. I was thinking of Adam Roberts from the UK. He does a lot of standalone work too. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
And it's a tougher road to hoe.
Yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke, until even the sequels, right? The only series that he continued himself was the 2001 series with 2069, and then 2010, or whatever order he wrote them in, 2010, 2069,
2061,
2001.
3061, something like that.
Because the sequels to Rama were written by Gentry Lee. And most, and Clarke is my all-time favorite science fiction writer. Fountains of Paradise is a standalone, brilliant book. Fall of Moondust, standalone, brilliant book. Childhood's End, standalone, brilliant book. But the
Another
field was
influential one for
small
me.
enough then that, Heinlein, who also, although a lot of his stuff was in the same timeline, we don't really think of as the same, as nearly as tightly knit as, say, the Foundation universe. But yeah. I would have, after I won the Hugo for Hominids, that weekend, that weekend at that Worldcon, they timed it, of course. The Hominids had come out the year before. They launched the paperback of Hominids and the hardcover of the next book, Humans. And my editor, David G. Hartwell, sadly deceased now from Tor, said to me that night, Rob, you could have a very fine career just writing Neanderthal novels for us till the end of time. And I thought that would be purgatory for me. As much as I love Ponter Bottom, my Neanderthal character, Mary Vaughn, my lead human character. I want to explore strange new worlds.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. And I think a lot of other people here actually appreciate it. Big thank you to you for your lifelong dedication to arts. You have made a huge mark on SF literature and have made a positive difference in the hearts of your readers. I would say you're part of Canada's big three. People might think of William Gibson and Margaret Atwood, and I'd say you were part of that group of the big three for Canada.
Well, you are very kind. I'm very much appreciative of that. Of course, Margaret and Bill both are essentially published out of category. I mean,
true.
not at the beginning for Bill. There's no question that Neuromancer was an ace new special edited by Terry Carr, mass market paperback original. There it is right there. But after his breakout, he stopped being published by Ace and started being published by Putnam, a related company. Margaret was never published in science fiction by design to try and get her a larger readership. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be included in that August company. You know, I am. I've been very lucky, and Canada's been very good to me. You know, as you know, I have the Order of Canada, which Bill doesn't. So,
and you know what? I'd also say
Margaret does.
Okay. Yes, I remember you told a story about that. People, if they want to go back to the McNally Robinson feed, there's a great story about Margaret Atwood and Robert J. Sawyer and being science fiction writers. It's a very entertaining story. But I was going to go back into the 1990s. One of the first times that I saw you here in Winnipeg is, I think it was the public library was holding an author event in September. I can't even remember the word or the name of it now. Something about word, but
it was Thin Air.
Thin Air. That's right.
Yeah, the Winnipeg International Book Festival. Absolutely, I was there a number of times, and Bob Wilson was there once too.
And what I was impressed by is you were saying, my goal was to be a full-time science fiction writer, to be basically Canada's resident full-time science fiction writer. And I just, that really sparked some patriotism in me. I love that. That was a great comment.
Thank you. You know, you mentioned, oh my God, who was it at the beginning you held up?
The old book?
Lloyd.
E. Van Vogt?
No, not Van Vogt. The other one.
Okay.
Who lived out in the
Lawrence Manning.
Lawrence Manning. I was going to say Lloyd Biggle. Lawrence Manning. Yeah. Right? His story, and for that matter, A. Van Vogt's story, Gordon R. Dixon's story, subsequently S.M. Sterling story. So many of our writers end up going to the States. Sometimes in S.M. Sterling's case, simply for a climate that was more conducive to, I forget if it was his asthma or his wife's asthma, very dry climate in New Mexico. But yeah, I said, I'm going to plant my roots and stay here. And the irony is, I'm a dual citizen. I'm a dual U.S. Canadian citizen. I can walk across the border anytime and put down my tent pole. Whereas, you know, Steve had to jump through hoops, and so did the others to get ultimately to become either U.S. citizens or green card holders, permanent residents. But yeah, I thought, no, I'm going to stake my territory here in Canada. And it's been very good to me.
And we mentioned Robert Charles Wilson became a Canadian from being an American.
He certainly did. Yes, yes.
So someone's talking about your short fiction, and I want to mention, I saw recently, and I didn't know these existed, that you've published all of your short fiction in 3 books.
Yes.
There was one word title for them.
Space and time, based on, you know, I looked at how I can slice and dice 280,000 words of short fiction into 3 volumes, and they worked out very nicely thematically. Stories set on Earth, stories set in outer space, and stories about time travel in all its various forms.
And that's your entire bibliography of short stories,
right? Correct? Because I gave up writing short fiction by and large in, I think it was 20 years ago, 2006, I think was my last published one, which means I wrote in 2005, with one exception when Microsoft came along, a dozen years ago, and said, we want to commission a short story by you, and we'll pay you more than you got for your first novel to write a short story, and fly you to Seattle for a VIP tour of Microsoft Labs and everything. I gave it up because Spider Robinson, when he was hosting the Hugos, I don't remember what Worldscon he was out, but he came out, and this is the line. He said, "Welcome to an award ceremony named after a man who invented a per word payment rate we still use." Right? The penny a word, or a couple of pennies a word. Most science fiction publications pay 6 cents a word. I do literally an order of magnitude better writing a chapter of a novel than writing a equal length short story, each maybe, let's say, 5,000 words. So I just gave it up as an economic choice. Sometimes I think about going back to it, but I had 44 published short stories, nominated for the Hugo, nominated for the Nebula, won multiple Auroras for short stories, finalist for the Bram Stoker Award from the Horror Writers Association, film options for some of them. Fine little career as a short story writer. But there are only so many hours in a workday, Richard, and writing novels turned out to be my métier, as Jack Nicholson says in Chinatown.
Well, this person here says that their favorite piece of your short fiction was "If I'm Here, imagine where I set my luggage." What a great title!
Thank you. As a story about that title, that was written for a contest in The Village Voice, which was the Greenwich Village arts newspaper in New York, a weekly newspaper. They had a contest in 1981-82 for stories precisely 250 words long. Not under, but precisely that word count.
Wow.
But title words didn't count. So if I'm here, imagine where they sent my luggage was an extra sentence in my story.
Was that the first
and it was
sentence
judged by Shauna McCarthy, who was editing Asimov's at the time, Victoria Chauchet, who was the editor, I think, at Bantam Science Fiction, and one other, it might have been Baird Searles, who ran the science fiction shop, the bookstore in Greenwich Village. And I was one of the winners. And for many years, I had that printed on the back of my business card, just the 250-word short story. But thank you. That was my first American fiction publication, was that story.
Now, here's a collection that I have never seen, because it's stories and essays. And so that's why I'm looking forward to your nonfiction book to see some of those essays as well.
Yeah, this is, and there is an ebook version of this available now through me. So I was guest of honor at a convention in Chicago, and conventions in Boston for many years have been put on by a group called NESFA, New England Science Fiction Association. Well, the Chicago group thought that they should have their own press, and they did create one called ISFIC Press, Illinois Science Fiction something, and they decided that when you were a guest of honor at one of their conventions, they would do a hardcover book. Well, they wanted something, so I gave them, I think it was 8 of my best short stories and a bunch of my nonfiction. And my great friend Mike Resnick wrote the introduction, sadly passed away. And Valerie Broden, who is an academic who has studied my work for many years, wrote an afterword. And it's a beautiful book with a terrific cover. And as I said, not that the cover has anything to do with my fiction, but he was by the artist guest of honor at the same convention. I said, finally, I got a naked girl on the cover of my book, so I'm a real pulp writer now, right? But yeah, it's a good collection, but all of the short stories are in Earth, space, or time, and all of the fiction, plus lots more, plus 200,000+ words more, well, not 200 plus, 175,000 plus, will be in Sawyer on Science Fiction, coming August 4th, 2026.
All right.
Find bookstores everywhere.
We'll put it up right at the end again, just to promote it again.
Bingo.
And I'm just going to say NESFA Press is amazing.
They are. They absolutely are.
They're the New England Science Fiction Association. They put back into print so many old authors' works.
That's right.
Very impressed with them.
Huge collections of Theodore Sturgeon, Judith Merrill, who is one of the few American SF writers who came to Canada. Like Bill, came to Canada during the Vietnam War, although Judy was in no danger of being drafted.
And you've Judith A. Merrill has a collection in the public library, and I believe you're a writer in resident at one point.
I
There.
was.
Yeah.
So Judy is my dear friend Judith Merrill was the most influential science fiction book editor in a way in the 1950s and early 60s, because there was only one Year's Best, and she was the editor of it. And she also edited an influential anthology with what sounds like a ridiculous title to us today, England Swings SF, about the new wave in England, which was trying to bring more literary sophistication to science fiction storytelling. And she said, look, you Americans who aren't seeing this in New Worlds and other British magazines, you got to see how good this stuff is and how broadening of the field's parameters it was. So hugely influential, but she was also for many years the book reviewer for the magazine of fantasy and science fiction. Well, a book reviewer gets sent all of every publisher's books every month in their category, science fiction and fantasy. She had a huge personal library. She hauled it all the way up from New York City to Toronto and said to the Toronto Public Library Board, I will donate my huge collection to you if you establish a library to house it and give me an office in that library for as long as I live. And they said yes, back when there wasn't all that much bureaucracy and you could make that kind of interesting deal. And it was originally called the Spaced Out Library, largest public library collection of science fiction and fantasy literature in the world today. And ultimately, the library found that that wasn't appropriate, not enough gravitas. So they had a committee come up with a new name, and I came up with the new name, the Merrill Collection of Science Fiction, Speculation, and Fantasy, or MC equals SF squared. And Judy was the original writer in residence there, and I was the first one to hold the post after Judy, and I held it in 2003. And a goodly number of now successful Canadian science fiction writers were mentored by me during my time as writer in residence there.
I'm hoping to go and see some of the collection this summer. I know a librarian who she's online here, a booktuber too. Her name is Andrea from Infinite Text. She's a rare books librarian in Toronto
at the Robarts Library, n'est-ce pas?
Oh, I don't know where you
are. I believe that's where she is.
Okay, yeah. Oh, so you have met her?
I know my librarians, right?
Nice. Oh, she'll be so pleased.
Listen, when you come to Toronto, Richard, let's get together.
Awesome.
I'll go to visit the Merrill with you.
Okay.
I've had the behind the scenes tour before, but it's well worth seeing.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to some of these other comments here.
Gordon Get Good. I know him.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
And Gregory Koch. I know them both. They're both members of my Patreon. And Gordon was not in my year, but was, I think, actually a classmate of my brother. But certainly fine human beings all.
I'm just a couple of years younger than you, too.
Yeah. But let's hear their questions or comments.
Well, that just was thank you. And we had some more here. One of the things I've enjoyed doing with your body of work is finding ancient parallels, fables, legends, folklore. There's a reason why your concept of philosophical fiction is enduring. Tell me a little bit about your opinion of philosophical fiction.
So the name of our genre, as you well know, Richard, is science fiction, and it was coined almost a century ago by Hugo Gernsback, a Luxembourger immigrant to New York, who founded the world's first science fiction magazine. 100 years ago, the first issue came out, dated April 1926. Of course, it came out in March, as magazines do. And he called it scientifiction, all run together, scientifiction. Well, that didn't catch on. And after a few issues, he just dropped it to science fiction. I've always thought that that was a misnomer because, yes, of course, science is the backdrop of most science fiction. But it is also the literature that asks existential questions. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? What does it all mean? Science fiction deals with that. And that's actually the province outside of fiction of philosophy. So I've long contended that were I able to go back in time and have a word with Hugo and say, I won your award. So listen to me. I'm from the future and I'm going to shove this rocket ship up your if you don't change the name to philosophical fiction, which we can abbreviate not as sci-fi, but fi-fi.
Fi-fi, yeah. Fi-fi. Is that right?
P-H-I-F-I, fi-fi.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, most of us old timers don't use sci-fi. We're kind of,
SF.
you know, that's kind of the name that was used dismissively. We lost that battle when NBC Universal created what they originally did call the Sci-Fi Channel, SCI-FI.
Yeah.
And it just became impossible to say, no, sci-fi is lost in space. Science fiction is what we write, or science SF, as we all call it.
Yeah. I've left that conversation.
It's
let
a
that go as well,
space,
because there's no reason to alienate anybody coming into enjoying the genre.
100%. The worst thing that organized fandom ever did was when somebody shows up and says, "Oh, I like sci-fi too," to give them a lecture, because the person walks away and never comes back.
I agree.
Fandom has, I've been a part of fandom since my own teenage years, and there's a huge section on science fiction fandom in Sawyer on science fiction. But we've not had a good track record of being welcoming. I remember being at a convention a few years ago with Daryl Schweitzer, who had been one of the editors of Weird Tales, one of the editors of Isaac Asimov's Science Fiction magazine, one of the best interviewers of science fiction writers. And we're standing there, both of us, in our 60s, well, Daryl in his 70s. And Daryl said, I like the way this convention has been drawing in younger readers. And we were in the dealer's room, and I looked around and I said, point to one. And he said, well, I thought I saw one earlier, right? It's been terrible about bringing young people. Young people devour science fiction. Most of the best-selling YA is either science fiction or fantasy, whether it's Hunger Games or whether it's Harry Potter. That is, absolute genre fiction. And yet we push them away at every opportunity instead of saying, yes, but let me show you some adult stuff, right? Okay, here, let me show you the good stuff, right?
So, we had talked about briefly, you talked about Sterling. He came up with the term slipstream to talk about science fiction that was in the mainstream, right?
That's the other Sterling. Bruce Sterling.
Different Sterling. Okay.
That's both of them buddies, different spelling.
Yeah.
Sterling Bruce is spelt like sterling silver. Sterling SM for Stephen Michael, the alternate history master, is spelt like stir crazy. But he'd probably say more like stirring your tea.
So which one is the one from Texas? Is that the Bruce Sterling?
Bruce Sterling lives in Texas, and SM Sterling lives in New Mexico now.
Yeah, which seems to be a hotbed for science fiction writers. Wow. Whenever I've gone to New Mexico a few times, and it just seems like I learn more and more about how many different science fiction writers.
Well, that's right. And of course, George Martin is there, and it kind of is a hub of that community.
Yeah. And it
used
Walter
to be John Williams is there, and I think Barbara Hambly is there. No, Melinda Snodgrass is there, I think. Sorry. Yeah.
And Gregory's back saying he loves Uphill Climb. It changed the paradigm from in the future, there will be no disability to in the future, disability will be accommodated seamlessly and without stigma.
Yes.
That last phrase there rings true for me, boy.
Thank you. That was my first sale to a major American science fiction magazine. It sold to Amazing Stories, aforementioned, the Hugo Gernsback founded magazine. I think in 87 that story sold. So 3 years before my first novel came out.
And we have another person. He's a Patreon supporter too. DC James is the character there. So
yes, he's been very helpful to me with preparing for the book that I'm writing right now. Because he's a twin, and my book has twins as main characters. Thank you, Dave.
So you have a fiction book on the way, is what you're telling me?
Oh, that slipped out, but yes, I do.
Okay, with twins. I don't know. Did you want to say anything about it? I'm not gonna...
It's been taking me a long time to write, and I will simply say that it will be unlike any book you've ever read before. It is the most challenging book I've ever written. Yes, but if you join my Patreon, Robert J. Sawyer Patreon, readers there have already read sample chapters and outlines and brainstormed with me. So come join my journey at Patreon.
What I'll do is I'll get you
$5 US a month. You join, you get to come to a party. I think I know it is the first Saturday of December this year at my home here in Mississauga. Right there is a beautiful model of the Starship Enterprise. You can't see it on here, but you come to my party and you can.
If you send me the link to that Patreon, I'll put it into the description of this episode because lots of people watch this after we've been live.
Excellent.
So, here's a question. Have you ever worked with Spider Robinson, Canadian as well, right?
Or worked with him? No, but we're great friends. We're great friends. I was just talking to Spider a couple of months ago on the phone. He's out in British Columbia. Wonderful guy. I've known him since 1985. And I'll tell you, this is Spider in a nutshell. I was on book tour early in my career, and I went to White Dwarf, the very fine science fiction specialty store in Vancouver, and did a signing there. And Spider came and he said, Rob, I know you're just going to go back to your hotel. Don't do that. Come back to the house. Have a drink. I come back to the house and he's thrown a surprise party for me. Gotten everybody from Vancouver fandom and Prodom, the other writers, come out to his house to welcome, as he said, one of the tribe who was visiting from afar. Toronto to Vancouver being quite a far distance.
Yeah.
Just the nicest, warmest, sweetest, most talented man you could imagine. And of course, a Hugo and a Nebula Award winner. Just the nicest guy, Spider Robinson. Love that man to death.
Tell me, this brings up a question to my mind. When you were starting out in your career, primarily with the short stories before you got into your novels, who were some of your mentors or who were some of the people that you really looked up to at that point?
There's going to be a lot about that in Sawyer on Science Fiction. So a writer in Toronto who just passed away last year named Terrence M. Green, like the color, no E at the end. Terrence M. Green, two-time World Fantasy Award finalist, but also a science fiction writer, published in Asimov's magazine of fantasy and science fiction, short story writer, several novels, including for Tor. And when I was starting out around 88, I approached him somewhat trepidatiously because he was the pro in Toronto and I wasn't. So would you read one of my stories? And he phoned me up. I mailed it to him back in the no email. He phoned me up and said, why don't you come on over? We'll have a tea and a croissant. And we went out into his office, which was in a garage. He'd made it into an office. And he tore it to shreds and taught me more in that afternoon than anybody had ever taught me about writing. And throughout my career, he was very supportive. So he and another Toronto writer, Andrew Weiner, who was selling to Interzone and Rod Serling's Twilight Zone magazine, and also FNSF and Asimov's, they were my two mentors. Andrew born in 48, Terry born in 47. I was born in 60. So 12 and 13 years older than me. And they were so generous. And both of them have sadly passed away. Mm-hmm. I miss them both every day.
Yeah. And that type of editor, somebody who is not just patting you on the back, right? Who is really giving it to you or giving their opinion on how it works. So important in forming a writer, I'm sure.
Well, I'll tell you a story. It's very flattering to me, but what the heck? I'll tell it. I used to teach a week-long writing workshop at the Banff Center for the Arts. Mm-hmm. And one of my students on the first day, at the end of the first day, was going around telling the other students, or like 8 or something in the group, maybe 12, I can't remember, that guy Sawyer's an asshole. And he told me, I didn't know how to write, right? I have a degree in creative writing from York University. And on the last day of the class, he got up in front of the class and said, I want to thank you, Rob. I spent thousands of dollars and 4 years at York University, and nobody ever gave me negative feedback and told me what I was doing wrong. You're the only person who cared enough to tell me what I was doing wrong. Ryan went on to win not 1, not 2, but 3 Canadian Science Fiction and Fantasy Awards, the Auroras. Ryan McFadden, fine writer.
Love to hear that. And when your event was here in Winnipeg, I met somebody I didn't know from Winnipeg, was a science fiction writer, Gerald Brandt, and managed to pick up a few of his books. So
Gerald Brandt is a terrific writer and a terrific guy. Mm-hmm. terrific writer for books for DAW, where you're wearing the shirt there.
Yes, I am.
Starting
I thought it
with,
would be appropriate from our conversation.
well, I was thinking you only have one set of clothes because you were wearing that the last time I saw you,
It's
right?
my Robert J. Sawyer shirt now.
Yeah, it's a great shirt. I don't know if people can quite see it. You might want to stand up just for a
Sure.
moment so they can see the logo, DAW SF Books, the former logo of Donald A. Wollheim Books. That was on many, 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 many books. They all had distinctive yellow spines.
Here, we'll
Here's
put a
one right
Canadian
there.
up here too.
And show it sideways. They all
Yeah.
had the yellow
There we
spine
go.
like that.
Yeah, there we go. So
Gerald
there's the
Brandt,
dog.
terrific writer. Is that Michael Coney?
It is.
Michael Great Rex Coney, Canadian author.
Yeah.
Gerald's first novel is called The Courier, about a courier between in what they call San Angeles, San Francisco to Los Angeles, one contiguous cyberpunky city. Great, great writer. And right there in the Winnipeg. That's right. In the Peg.
Yeah.
Carl Schrader, also a fine writer for Tor, from Manitoba, not from the Peg, but from Manitoba, now lives in Toronto.
Right. Those two, I have a number of their books. Haven't started to read them yet, but that's the thing about collecting books.
Yeah, yeah.
Trying to get to everybody that you want to read, but definitely working on the Canadian writers here. And Julie Cerneda.
I'll do it for you.
Okay.
Chur. Say it as if it's CHUR. Chur.
Sure.
Nay, N-A-Y, da. Cherneda.
Cerneda.
Yeah.
All right. And she was a biologist, right?
That's right. She's a biologist, writes really good, hard SF, brilliant, brilliant writer. I blurbed, I think, her most recent or her second most recent book. She's blurbed my books. We've been friends from before she published her first book. She took me out to lunch once at a science fiction convention to pick my brain before she published. Just an absolutely wonderful person.
We have a comment here. This is something I wanted to bring up too, so I'm glad this came up. I'm not sure how much time you have here. Maybe we'll see, but we can start to wrap this up, I guess, unless people get in some comments. You have one of the most thorough and oldest science fiction author websites. You can tell us when you started, because I was there in the 1990s already looking at your site. I've always wondered how you make updates and maintain it over all these years. And I think you said it's over 1 million words on the website.
Over 1 million words of text.
Yeah.
It was founded in July 1995, so it's 31 years old. It was indeed the first science fiction author website in the world, and the first website by any Canadian author in any category. And it just sort of grew and grew and grew and grew over the years. And the whole thing is hand-coded in HTML using WordStar for DOS. I still write with WordStar for DOS. And the whole thing hand-coded in HTML, which is kind of, I kind of like getting my hands down and dirty.
Way to go, Rob.
And, there are all kinds of tools that make it easy to make fancier websites.
Yeah.
But mine will load fast on any device. It works well on phones, works well on widescreen laptops or desktops. And yeah, I just maintain it myself. It's something I enjoy doing whenever I write. So, if you wanted to, you could hunt through those million words and find most of the 225,000 words that are in Sawyer on science fiction. But you do a lot of hunting before you found them.
I prefer reading
they're over, I forget what it is, 300 separate pages on the website.
Mm-hmm. I much
and we should
a
say,
physical book.
by the way, there's no point in talking about without giving the URL, which is sfwriter.com. S is in science, F is in fiction, writer.com.
And if you're watching this later, I'll make sure it's in the description here as well if you need a link. Let's see what we got here. I think he officially has the first. Yeah. So your other viewer here knew that already. And endearing. It takes back to a simpler time. I don't think it.
It's all text. I mean, there are
time.
graphics. I wanted something that people would, if you weren't interested in reading long streams of text, I would never convert you to being a purchaser of one of my novels, because that's not what you want to do. If you just want flashy little things, you're going to end up consuming TikTok or Reels on Facebook or some other fast-paced media. But if you want deep, in-depth articles and discussions, then this sort of is the kind of website that should appeal to you. And also, always, but particularly because of Wake, Watch, and Wonder, which had a blind protagonist, I have a great number of followers in the visually impaired community. And my website has alt tags long before people were being prompted at various places, oh, why don't you add alt text? I've always had alt text on all of my graphics, which is the text that a blind person's speech reader will announce to them, the book cover of The Downloaded 2. Robert J. Sawyer lecturing at Google, or whatever the caption should be.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'd never even thought about that. And that for pictures that would just announce whatever the file name basically was.
Yeah, that's what the alt text is for.
Yeah. I was also going to mention that one of the reasons I really was into there in the 90s as well was because you had first chapters of your books too.
Yes.
It was a really good way to sample and see if potentially this is one you'd like to pick up.
Even before that, I mean, yes, absolutely. I did that. But on excuse me, the spring allergies here in Toronto. The day it went online, I think I started off with 6 short stories online. I was the first science fiction writer in the world to give away previously published fiction for free. And it was, people said, are you nuts? You'll never, there's a resale market for fiction. Blah, blah. I resell stories all the time. I was just doing a contract, the payment information for one today, many of which had been on my website. But I was the pioneer in saying, let people read some stuff for free. And I had to actually fight with some of my publishers because they didn't even want a first chapter online. Now every publisher allows you to put maybe 5,000 words online. I said, no, this first, I think Quantum Night, I have the first quarter of the book online because I know if you've read through the first quarter, you can't put that one down. There it is right in the background. That's right.
Yeah, it is in the background here.
Yeah. About a psychopathic American president wanting to annex Canada, among other things.
And published, what was it, 2017 or so?
2016.
2016.
Before Trump had even emerged.
Yeah.
But you could see, if you're a science fiction mind, you could see the move towards authoritarianism in the United States.
Yeah. All right. You know what? I think we've run out of questions here, and I think this is a good time here, an hour and 15. Yeah. I really appreciate your time, Rob. This has been great, wide-ranging conversation here. Do you want to promote your books here again, or let me get
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll add this one to the stage too.
Are the Downloaded and the Downloaded 2 Ghosts in the Machine. If you're looking for the ebook of the Downloaded 2, it is out there. But for whatever reason, Amazon has not paired it up with the paperback book. So just scroll down or put Kindle in. But it's an ebook in all formats. And coming August 4th in ebook and in print, my massive nonfiction collection, Sawyer on Science Fiction. Ruminations on what's wrong with the field, what's right with the field, speeches from the Library of Congress and the University of Cambridge, introductions to books by many of my colleagues, and a lot of good how-to-write advice, plus what I would consider to be the most comprehensive history of Canadian science fiction ever published.
Oh, I love hearing that. So, and don't forget audible.com or .ca. You can listen to these books as well. And
all my other books, all of my books are on Audible.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Rob. And to everybody out there, I don't know if you remember this about me. A couple of years ago, I had said, asked if you could just say, until next time, keep reading. You want to end us off with that?
Until next time, keep reading.
Oh, perfect. Here we'll say goodbye to everyone.